All right, so let's get to it. So the announcements, the only announcement I have really is that Cultura is down until they get it fixed, which doesn't really affect this class too much. But my Swift class, I use it a lot in. I have the students actually use Cultura to record things. In this class, I was using it to post video, but last Wednesday it wasn't working then, so they're suggesting not using it until further notice, basically. So I'll be posting things through YouTube, which I have this week. If you'll look on this week in our class, you will see that I have a YouTube video there of last week's super exciting video. All right. I'm trying to wake up and motivate. Feeling a little lethargic this afternoon for some reason. Don't know why. So we'll do what we can and get out of here. All right. So Cultura is down. Doesn't affect you too much. I'll be posting to YouTube, even though it seemed to take YouTube forever to finish processing my videos last week. But that's what I have to do. All right. Any other announcements? I don't think there are. All right. Today we're going to go over Chapter 3, which is level design, goals, and hierarchies. I don't have any specific assignments for it yet. Right? We're going to talk about, let's see. We'll talk about a class project, right, going forward. And the level design, goals, and hierarchies will come into play next week when I ask you to kind of codify what we're going to do in our class project. For now, we're going to go over the chapter, hit the highlights and that sort of thing. And then I'm going to show you a little Pro Builder. Actually, I am not a master at Pro Builder. Has anybody used Pro Builder before? Jacob says nope. Charles says once. Katie, nope. No for me.
No, I prefer just either just third party, either Max or the other 3D. Can't think of it now, but one we're learning in class.
Gotcha. So you've used it, but you still don't like it?
No, I don't think I've ever really even tried it.
Okay. Well, this assignment is going to require you to. If you don't like it, you can report back and say, I tried it, don't like it, never going to use it again, if you want to, right? But yeah, just to kind of kick the tires. What Pro Builder is, it used to be a third-party add-on that you could buy for Unity, but Unity liked it so much that they purchased it, which they've done with a lot of their stuff. So you can install it through the package manager now and use it directly in Unity. What it is, it allows you to quickly build 3D objects in Unity without having to use outside 3D software, which is cool. Like I said, I'm not a master of it, and as you'll see very soon, I should have played around with it more before doing this, but hopefully you might teach me something, and that's one of the things, right? So some of you will probably grab it and run with it and say, wow, this is really cool, and hopefully you will. But anyway, we're going to look at that after we get through Chapter 3, the highlights. All right, so let's do that. So share content. All right. So I just shared the screen. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. Well, that was quick. All right. I'll try to let you know when I switch screens so you can tell me if there's major lag or something. All right, so level design goals and hierarchies, right? So last week we talked about game design goals, right? And how game design and level design work together and that sort of thing. And last week we specifically talked about teaching mechanisms, right? This week we're drilling down into level design goals and how they fit into the game design process. So when you start any kind of big task, right? What is the first thing you usually want to do when you do that? Any ideas? Just throw it out there. All right. Well, hopefully you want to define what it is you're trying to achieve, right? And game development, they call this success definition, right? So let's put this in our notes here. Notes on chapter 3. Success definition. Why do you think you should start by defining what success is? Anybody there? Maybe it's in the chat. Maybe your chat.
Oh yeah, we're typing.
I'm sorry. I always forget to open the chat window. It's a separate window when you share your screen. Everything goes really small, and the chat window disappears entirely. Right? All right.
Yeah, don't try to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. No, if I'm being stupid, you can interrupt me. All right. Cut it into small chunks so you know where you're going, so you have a goal. Yes, and those all kind of hit at the same thing, right? If you don't have a definition for success, how do you know when you're done, right? Has anybody ever heard of feature creep? What is feature creep? You can speak if you want to. You don't have to stay muted the whole time.
I'm gonna put it in the chat.
All right. We keep adding more and more stuff to your goal and get overwhelmed. Yes. Well, I mean, you may or may not get overwhelmed. That is usually the case. Yes. And I mean, the overwhelmed thing is that's subjective, right? The problem is that feature creeps when you have this great idea for a game or any kind of software, really, right? And you have this big design meeting. You come up with all the core features of your game, and then while you're creating the game, the developers themselves go, "It would be cool if we did this," or "Cool if we did X or Y or Z," right? And say, "Yeah, let's do that." And you keep adding things that aren't part of the first definition. And what happens is that every time you do that, you extend the length of time, the development time of your game or project. And that's feature creep, right? I mean, I guess it's possible that you could get them all done, right? But eventually, if you never cut it off, you'll never get them all done, right? If you keep adding features, you're never going to finish them all. So feature creep, the success definition helps to avoid feature creep. Because you define clearly what your goal is so that you continuously go back to that goal as you're developing to make sure that you are on target to go towards that goal, right? So that if you start doing something that's not part of that goal, you say, nope, we got to scrap that, right? And that's not to say you can't add anything, but you really try to stay tight to that goal, right? And some of that, how much you wiggle from that depends on who's funding you and what their timeline is and how flexible that timeline is, right? If you have a publisher that has a hard release date of the day before Thanksgiving, and they're not going to pay you otherwise, then you better stick to the success definition that you laid out. Right? All right. So, what are you trying to achieve? That's what the success definition is. All right. As it says here, the success definition can be game-wide, right? Indeed, a clear definition should exist at the top of the game's hierarchy of goals. It can also be level-wide, right? So when you're defining one level, you say, what is our success? What defines success for creating this level? So you know when you're done with the level, right? So there's a hierarchy. That's what goes back to the name of the title of the chapter, doesn't it? And let's see. It can be level-wide. It can be even occur on smaller gameplay scales, right? For example, a hypothetical level-wide success definition could state, train players' combat skills throughout the level and build up the player's level of confidence and ability in order to prepare them for the introduction of a new enemy creature. That's a pretty well-stated success definition for a level. Right? A game-wide success definition might read, create an action horror hybrid that can be described as Dracula meets the Terminator. So in our case, the success definition describes what the level designer needs to achieve. Right? So that's important. Just as we had external game design goals, there's also external level design goals, right? So Emma says she's got a lot of background noise going on over here. From my end, I assume. Okay. Well, that's why you don't want to log in. Okay. Got you. All right. Yeah, I'm lucky you don't hear my whiny dog right this second, so that's good. All right, so external level design goals. Remember from the game design goals, right? What was the number one external design goal that you see everywhere? The number one goal in creating games usually is what?
Make money.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Whether or not that's your goal here, right? I'm sure it probably is, but if it's not, that's fine. But that is why most games are made, right? But external level design goals, obviously, they can be similar, right? So some of them examples here are: be appealing to both genders, stay true to the brand image, sell X amount of units, push new engine technology, win a BAFTA award, receive a Metacritic rating higher than 57. All this seem kind of like the exact same thing as the external game design goals, really. I mean, because the external level design goals just kind of feed into the external game design goals, so they're very similar. All right. Commercial considerations, right? And this is directly apropos to what we were just talking about. The most important reason that publishers fund game development is because they think it is likely to make them money. If the game design within this context doesn't support a commercially viable end product, it has failed to fulfill its basic function from the publisher's perspective. And it says this might be an unwelcome, interpretation of game design, right? Because you want to think of it as an art form and pure, but the fact is that if somebody's funding your development, then they want a return on that investment. You you want to be an artist, you can be. You just have to be an independent developer and fund yourself, which is sometimes not easy to do. All right, internal level design goals. Just as we had internal game design goals, we have internal level design goals, right? And level design goals are derived from direct gameplay considerations, right? They deal with requirements such as the following: empower the player, teach the player how to have fun with the game, don't break the player's suspension of disbelief, give the player a sense of achievement, reward the player for exploration, provide addictive, fun gameplay. And as it says, these are important to define as these are as important to define as the external factors, right? Because they will actually influence how you design your gameplay. All right. Games level design is not an isolated construct, just as a game design does not function independently. They need to complement each other, or both will suffer. We talked about that before, right? That game design and level design they coexist. Internal level design goals are the bread and butter of our profession. They give us very specific goals to aim for in order to provide a good gameplay experience. In a hierarchy of internal goals, the game's overall gameplay experience always comes out on top, and the level design needs to support this. So this also means we have to start putting our level design goals into some sort of hierarchical order, right? So level design hierarchies, hence the name of the chapter. So how do we know what to value to assign to these goals and requirements? What components do we focus on first when we start working on a new level? Which elements are more important? What if it doesn't work? So all these questions come up when you're developing a game, and we have to give them a place within a logical level design hierarchy. Right? Development hierarchy. To try to make sense of all the things that take place in development, it's good to have some kind of framework that shows us what is more important than other things, right? That helps kind of focus your development process, right? If we can figure out where these things fit in the scheme of things, we can make choices on what and how to prioritize and where dependencies occur. In a game design setting, here are a number of known stages and areas of development. They tend to fit into a structure where one area supports another in certain hierarchical order. Generally, we have to look at the following questions. Why are we making the game? What game are we making? And how are we making it? So why, what, and how, right? And then from that, you can get this game-wide hierarchy, right? You see success definition, under that external goals, under that internal goals, and then you get game design and level design, which, as we've seen, they're kind of partners, right? Almost at an equal level, right? They have to coexist. And then under that, you have technical design, art direction, and audio plan, right? In this pyramid shape, each segment is supported by the segments below it, and here we try to answer our why, how, and what questions with it the following would emerge. Right? Success definition answers why, right? Why are we making this game? And so how will we know when we're done? But we answer the question why to know that, right? External goals, again, why are we making it, right? Make money, win an award, that sort of thing. Internal goals, another why question, right? Why are we making this level? Game design, what, right? When you start designing a game, you're saying this is what we're going to make, right? We're going to make a game that's about Barbie and their horses, and she's going to be racing them, that sort of thing. Right? Level design, again, that's what, and we're getting into the how, right? So level design is kind of the applied game design. So you're still defining what the level is going to be, but you're also defining how the game is going to play and how you're going to actually create the game, right? Then the others are all technical, are all how questions, right? Technical design, how technically it will be put together, art, how the art's going to look, and audio plan, again, how, right? This diagram gives us a possible insight on where the level design exists within the overall context of the game's development. All right, so in the context of a level design, we ask those same questions again, right? Why are we making a level? What levels are we making? And how are we making them, right? So this is the level-wide hierarchies, right? Did anybody else join us, by the way? Let's see. I guess I can't see that. All right, so you have external level design goals, internal level design goals, structure, level design, right? And then for each level, you have these, this column and this column are exactly the same, right? So for each level, you have goals that and priorities that you have to fulfill, right? So you have per level goals, level design scenarios, gameplay moments, and gameplay actions, right? And you have these roles, you have one of these columns for each level that you have in the game. And again, he goes through which questions they answer, like the whys and the whats, right? And you can read that. I want you to read this for this week. This Dyson. I'm not going to read all this to you. It's very, it's an interesting case study. And if you look at the, do I have a book here? Yes. Well, actually, I'll show it to you. Page 47. All right, so this front cover here, right? That's on the front of your book. That is, in fact, that is Dyson, right? So this Dyson, a case study, is the author's game, right? You should know that it's not called Dyson now. Let me go in here. Dyson is now called Euphoria. I would encourage you, next week I'm going to have you write up a little summary of this case study. So read it this week. We'll talk about it next week, and then you'll write up your little summary of it, right? Because it goes in some depth into how they worked on their internal level design goals and all that sort of thing. And they did it for a competition. Which one was it? Independent games focused website community TIG source, right? It's kind of a game jam thing, I think. But the game's really interesting. You should check it out. It's a real-time strategy game, but it's very atmospheric in its presentation, right? If you look at it's kind of got a Japanese art feel to it, and the music is very ambient. So it's a real-time strategy game that doesn't make you feel really rushed or kind of like it's chaotic, even though there is time constraints on you if you want to win the game. But basically, you have these planets, and you send out little seeds from one planet to another planet, and you plant plants on that planet, and you try to take them over for your color, right? It's an interesting concept for a game, but I want you to read that, and next week you will do a small little summary of that. All right. And there are, I think there's a free trial version on iOS, if I'm not mistaken. There used to be. I bought it actually, but I happened to go to GDC the year it was actually up for an award. So that's when I found out about it. I saw it on the big screen for the Game Developers Awards that year. But there's a free version on iOS. I think there's some sort of web version too. I'll look them all up. I had links to them last year, but if you can play it, by all means play it, and that way it'll more inform your summary when you do it, I guess. But it's an interesting game. If not, just play it just to kind of get in the author's head. It's useful. All right. Let's see. This is it. Right. So that gets us all the way to the end of page 50, right? So where he jumps out of his Dyson realm, and he talks about the X factor, right? I'm sure you've heard of the X factor. There's a show called the X Factor, right? But what does the X factor have to do with game development? Anybody know? What is the X factor in other realms of entertainment? What does it mean?
Kind of like the wow factor moment, like the peak of the performance, kind of.
The wow factor? Kind of. Like if you say that actor's got the X factor, what does that mean? Or that singer's got the X factor, or that entertainer.
Would it be a surprise, like something not intended, but ended up being better than you thought?
Possibly. Kind of hits at it. Well, generally, it's considered to be almost an intangible thing, right? When you say, I don't know what it is, but that's awesome, right? I don't know what she has going on, but it's there, right? And it's summed up fairly well in this quote right here. A good game is more than the sum of its parts, right? And he has his illustration of this is Grand Theft Auto Vice City, right? Which was a phenomenal success, obviously, both financially and creatively. However, studied in isolation, many of the individual game components were lacking in some way or other, right? The aiming mechanic was cumbersome. Third-person character controls were frustrating. Camera often couldn't cope. The geometry and architecture were very low on detail, right? But despite those minor flaws, the game was a huge success, right? Because the things it did well, they all added up to just a phenomenal thing, right? That it was hard to put your finger on why this is so fun. That is the X factor, right? When you can't hardly describe why it's fun as it is, it's that undefinable thing. That's why it's X, right? Like a variable, right? Key point is that deficiencies or excellence in these areas do not necessarily make a bad or good gaming experience. Many people have tried to copy Vice City and have even improved upon individual gameplay mechanics, yet have come away with less enjoyable games. The science is the pure implementation of the required mechanics. But the art comes into play by taking those gameplay mechanics and making them work as effectively as possible within the game's success definition. Right? So we come back to that. So that's important. If you can obviously tap into the X factor and have a game with that, then you can be wildly successful. All right. All right. Let's see. Additionally, what gives Vice City an added appeal is how all its disparate elements have been made interesting by giving them cultural relevance. Music in the game, the references to 80s pop culture, and the humor can all be seen as essential contributions to the final appeal of the game. All right. Anybody have any other games that they would think that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts? All right. A modular approach to level design. When we say something's modular, what do we mean?
They all follow a similar formula. So a cookie cutter type game.
Yes, very possible. Yeah, and that's fair. That's a fair description. Anybody else have a? Well, what would a module be? I mean, that's the root word of modular. So, what is a module? Working on it in parts, yes, and specifically reusable parts, right? It's coming up with parts that can be used over and over again in different ways, so that you don't always, every level doesn't have to be crafted from whole cloth differently, right? And you'll see this in many games, right? If you construct modularly, you can create many more levels in a shorter amount of time than if you create everything by hand. All right. All right. So you want to have level design components that are multi-purposeful and effective. The modular aspect of this approach comes from the idea that once you determine what the function of a component is, you have more freedom in the way you try to hit the requirements that this functionality implies. A classic problem with inexperienced level designers is that they have insufficient grasp of the overall purpose of the particular level design task they are working on. It is easy to get trapped in problems due to tunnel vision. When this happens, the micro details of a particular level design component become more important than its actual function in the grand scheme of things. Suddenly, that ambush encounter you are working on has to be about using a particular weapon or enemy, while it may be entirely possible that the encounter can fulfill all its requirements while being staged against a completely different backdrop or by using an entirely different class of enemies. All right. Contingency planning, right? This goes hand in hand with the modular idea, right? What is contingency planning? Just in general, what is, if you're planning for contingencies, what does that mean?
A backup plan.
Backup plan, yes. If you've ever done any game development, which I hope you've done some, right? The more you do, the more you realize, if you haven't realized this yet, things go wrong, right? Things turn out to be more difficult than you thought they were going to be, take longer than you thought they were going to be, right? And if publisher's paying you to hit a time, and you can't hit that time, you may have to come up with alternative ways of getting to the end zone, so to speak, right? And it's important that you have ways of creating what you need to create that's good enough, right? Every time, game development isn't always perfect, and you can't always get everything in there that you might want. Modular development allows you to more easily create contingency plans, right? Because if things are modular, you might be working on, say, a really high. So you have this encounter that uses really complex AI, right? And so your character is going into this building, and you want that AI to be like top notch, right? But it turns out you don't have time to do that. If your AI programming is modular in nature, you can swap out the high level AI for something less than that, right? Without breaking your whole game. And that allows you at the last moment say, well, we got to scrap the high level AI. We have to put in the kind of the more dumb AI, right? And go with that. So the modular planning and the modular game design allows that, right? Hope that makes sense. All right. I'm sure all of you have played games that had modular aspects to them. Can anybody think of one? It's raining here. A modular level design.
Tetris?
Tetris. Well, that's not bad. I mean, and when you say the modules, what are you thinking of as the modules in there?
Just that the levels are repetitive. I mean, it's just faster speed, and I guess that's it. It's just faster.
Yeah.
Level.
I mean, I'll take that. I mean, I don't know if it's the best example, but it's good. I mean, all the pieces stay the same, I think, essentially. And there may be some new forms of Tetris that I've played the classic one. I don't know. I know they've updated it throughout the years, but I don't know how much it's changed, really.
Yeah, I just played the classic, too.
Gotcha. Any other examples other than Tetris? Mine is Super Meat Boys. I keep Uno. Uno's modular. The card game.
Yeah. On PlayStation, you can fight against AI. It's a different kind of thing. It's basically like the same level, but with different cards, and like they do a little bit of like different effects, but more or less the same. And the AI, like they do a lot of really dumb stuff sometimes. So that's the point. Where I think.
Okay, so you're saying like the AI is kind of modular.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And that's on the PlayStation version?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. I haven't played that. Awesome. Any others? Mine, I go back to Meat Boy, Super Meat Boy. If you've played that, their level design methodology is very modular, right? They'll take one thing and they'll use it in many different ways, right? The main one I see a lot, or I think of specifically, is like there's a saw blade, spinning saw blade. And the first time you see it, it's just sitting like there on the floor, right? And you have to jump over it. You don't jump over it, Meat Boy's dead and he bleeds all over the place. And then you might see it's moving back and forth on the floor, right? You say, oh, I got to move, Then you'll see a couple of them at the same time, and you got to jump through them like that, right? Then you'll see them on a wall where you have wall jumping around, and then you'll see them swinging, right? The saw blade's the same every time, right? They just put it in different situations and in different physical kind of things, but it's modular because the saw blade is the same, right? It's spinning. If you hit it, you die, right? And the physics behind the engine are the same. If Meat Boy hits saw blade, he's dead, right? He splats blood everywhere. But that's the good mod. And there's all sorts of things in Meat Boy that you'll see over and over again, but they just put them in different combinations to make it harder and harder and harder to get through, right? So for me, that's key, right? I think he... does he talk about it here? I thought he did. At one point, he talks about Halo and being modular, which, in my opinion, was overly so. Right? Halo, especially the first one, they used so many pieces that it looked exactly like other pieces that you get lost in your ship. Or at least I did. I'm probably the only person, maybe, but that's one of my beasts with Halo is that Master Chief could get lost in his own ship when he's trying to get out of it, even though he has this super intelligent AI unit in his helmet that apparently can't tell him how to get out of his ship. But anyway, I think he goes into that later on when he talks about the possibility of the modular thing being overused such that things start looking the same. But that might be in another chapter. Let's see. Conclusion. Hierarchies can offer a very useful tool. They give us a way to break level designs down in individual components and formulate a plan in which all of level design components fulfill their ultimate requirements. Furthermore, it allows us to check the value and importance of individual components and refer to their place in the overall hierarchy. Viewing the level design process through hierarchical steps may not always be a perfect fit. For one thing, one level design hierarchy may look different than another, and your mileage may vary between different projects. But it is always useful to try to find a way to define the why, how, and what questions within a logical order or hierarchy that allows you to make judgment calls on the implementation of your levels. So this is a higher level kind of thing, right? And this is what the designers of the game do, right? And defining this helps clear up decisions down the road. So that's why we do it. This gives us a practical means to assess what function any individual component or element fulfills, what it relates to, and how important it is. This has obvious uses that go beyond the need of the level designer. It also helps in establishing clear goals and criteria that are understandable to anybody involved in the development of the game. All right, so that is that chapter in a nutshell. But I do want you to read the Dyson case study before next time. Make sure you've read that, and because you will be doing a short summary of that at the end of that. All right. So let's see. We've got about 30 minutes left. So we're gonna open up Unity. I have Unity open here already, and I'm going to close this one. I guess I'll save it. I didn't mean to do that. All right. There we go. All right. So I want to create a new project. Note that I have upgraded my Unity to the latest long-term support release, which is 2019 4.9F1. Right? So this is what I'll be using from here on out this semester. All right, and we're going to name this. Can everybody see that? Or are we lagging?
No, we can see it.
All right.
We're good.
Awesome. Holy crap. Well, if things go black, it's because I've lost power here. Just letting you know. All right. So what was I doing? Oh yeah, Pro Builder Intro SGD 174. The Pro Builder intro will work, and make sure I'm in the right folder. And create, and we want 3D because Pro Builder is a 3D thing. Right? Yes, that was Thunder, yes. All right. So while that opens up, as I said, I am not a Pro Builder master. I have students that have done much more in Pro Builder than I have. So if you become one of those, congratulations. It is a useful tool, especially for like if you want to do a quick mock-up of a level, even if you don't want to use it for the final product. It is a quick way of mocking up a level for like prototyping, that sort of thing. So here we go. Yeah, eventually it's going to come up. All right, so here we go. We want some kind of surface to create on. So let's just throw in a game object, 3D terrain. Right. Oh, the new terrain is a checkerboard. Interesting. All right. We'll just leave it like that. All right. So the first thing we have to do is actually import the package for Pro Builder that we need, right? And we go to the new package manager under Window, Package Manager, right? And if you don't follow this the first time, it will be in the video that I'll upload this tomorrow, and you will see it there, right? So this is your package manager if you hadn't seen it before. And it takes a second to load them. And then you scroll down to, they're in alphabetical order, so you scroll down to Pro Builder there, right? And if you look over here, it'll say install, right? So you install the package and just click on install, and it'll take a couple seconds and do that. And of course, the import always takes a while. So just wait. Any questions so far?
Not on this. I had a question about the Explorer thing.
About the what?
About the Swift programming, the Cultura, it being down.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to do that capture assignment around the 13th. And did you want us to do it in a different way now, or did you want us to?
That's a good question. I'll put out a statement about that soon. If you can't do it, I obviously have to find a new way of going about that. I don't have an ideal solution yet. So I obviously will not count it against you if you have not done it because it's not working. I mean, that would be ridiculous, right? So I'll put out a statement. I have to push the date back. It's the due date back for that because obviously some people just did not have any luck getting it to work. So the statement will be pushing the due date back. I have to figure out another way of working around that. So I haven't. I was out of town over the weekend when that email came out, so I haven't done that yet. So, but the short answer is don't worry about the due date at this point. Until we can get something working, then I'll amend the due date. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Right.
You got people in the chat, by the way. Emma might have to leave early. Sorry.
No question, but I was going to mention that I'm going to have to leave a little bit earlier than normal, probably around. That's fine. Leave when. I mean, like I said, this will be. I don't know how long I'm going to do this anyway, but the video will be out there once I get to work tomorrow. All right. All right, so it should be installed. All right, so now we can go up to Window, and you should see, is that what it is? That tool, sorry. The Tools menu, and you'll see Pro Builder, right? And you say Pro Builder Window. And like I said, I am not the master of this, so don't expect. I haven't even used all these tools. I have not. I've used very few of them, in fact. The main one I've used is the new shape, and I put textures on them. I would like y'all to experiment as much as your heart desires to. Let's see who can create the most amazing level with these Pro Tools. Who's the Pro Tool master here, right? Because it's not going to be me, I'll tell you that. All right. But anyways, to start off, you have to create a new shape, right? And the new shape is down in, unsurprisingly, in the new shape menu. Click the plus because that gives you all these different options, right? So you see door was the last thing I used, so it's still selected, right? This prism, right? And it appears to be under, there it is, all right. There's a prism. You can see what all the different stuff you have here. Just play around with this stuff, right? The biggest takeaway I had, so one thing you end up doing if you're like me and stupid like me, you'll end up doing all this stuff and you forget to click this build button and it'll go away, right? So you will have wasted time if you do that. So you don't want to do that, right? So once you have something you want to build, make sure you click build, or else it won't actually appear in your level, right? But you can change the width, the height, obviously, all this cool stuff, right? You can dock this as well so that it doesn't keep going away, which is useful. There's a plane, right? Pipe. A lot of useful shapes that if you had to create them in a 3D modeling application, it might take you a little while just to get them done, and you can quickly pump them out here, right? So let's see, an arch. Right? And once you have it like you want to say build, and then it changes color. You'll notice that before you click build, it's like a blue color, and then when you finish, it turns into this kind of sepia colored tone thing. All right. Note that very much like a 3D application, like I know what those are, right? But I know a few things. It seems more like GIMP to me. But note there's several different ways of dealing with these objects, right? The standard, which is just like Unity, is object selection, right? If you look in the center of your screen here, right? The one that looks like a block is object selection, and under that is just like any other Unity object. It moves the whole object at once, right? You can spin it around just like any other object, and you can scale it up or down just like any other object. All right, that's pretty standard. In fact, I'm gonna get on the other side. So I'm gonna. But you can deal with it just like in Blender or Max or Maya. There's vertex selection, edge selection, and face selection, right? So if you do face, I'll just select that because I got to it last, right? I can select that. I can pull it out, right? Basically, you select the extrude tool, right? You can pull that out. You pull the face out, and the whole thing follows along with you. So you can do a lot of crazy stuff with just this simple tool, right? So I can pull that. Right. You can make it look really different, right? So there's something you can play with anyway. But so let's create a new. Let's see. Door. Build. If you want to move it around like this, make sure you switch back to the object selection mode. There's probably hotkeys for that. I do not know, right? All right. Did Emma leave? No. All right. So one thing you want to do, and I don't know that did I do that? Import package. All right. Standard assets in here. All right, so we have to import the standard assets. I don't like how those aren't immediately available anymore, but I'm going to do that real quick. So you'll want to have your character in there so you can run around your scene, right? I'll speak of this real quick. I talked about a group project, a class project. What I typically do is we create a timed runner, right? So that it can either be one or two things, or both if we choose. It's a level where you have a start and you have an end, and you time how long it takes to get there, right? So we're going to create levels that require the player to run from one point A to point B, right? If that makes sense, hope so. So if you want to create this pro builder level with an eye towards a runner level, by all means do so, right? But we will be doing that in the future. I'm just letting you know that now, right? So standard assets. Import, and hopefully this won't take forever. But anyway, But you want to import the standard assets. You want to have like probably a first-person character in there. If you want to put that third-person Adam in there, you can. But our runner is going to be first-person, all right, because it just works better.
I think I remember doing this last semester when we were creating terrains. Yeah, like we created a runner and we were having issues when we were taking those assets away off of Unity. Remember that?
Yeah, I don't know why they. It used to be part of what you downloaded with Unity, and you could just import it without going to the store, but they changed that for some reason. All right, so we'll let that import. Can I change it? Does everybody have Pro Builder installed now?
Yeah, I got it.
I think they do. I'll recheck.
This is fun. Kind of wish they'd split the standard assets into several. The package is so large that it takes a while to import. I don't really need it all. It'd be nice if you could just. I mean, I guess I could have looked through that large import dialog box and selected things, but I did. All right, cool. So that is done. Then we can go to our project. Go back to our scene. Standard assets, characters, first person character, prefabs, FPS controller. Then I can turn off the main camera. I don't need that anymore. Excuse me. And let's try to ground these things here. And just for the fun of it, we'll compile errors. How can I have compile errors? Oh, Lord. All right. Well, I have to figure out what that is. That's awesome. Reference component in there. That is messed up. All right. Oh, I love Unity sometimes. Door. How did that get there?
Mr. Bivens, I missed what you imported from the standard assets. Did you import everything?
I imported everything. That's why it took so long.
Okay.
But it's giving me errors now, so I don't know that was a wise. What the hell? All right, so I'll have to figure that out because I really don't know why that's doing that. When I click play, it's giving me another door for some reason. So I'm thinking there's something a reason for that. Can't figure out why they. Why would it do that? Yes, it's giving me another door and giving me an error. So that is less than awesome. Has anybody successfully put a first person in there and run it? Or are you having the same problem?
I'm still importing.
Katie's having the same issue. Yeah, it might be something with the first person controller script, which would be awesome, given I just imported it from the Unity Asset Store. But it actually doesn't say. Let me see. Where's the first actual GUI texture is obsolete? See, why does Unity use something that's obsolete? Question. In their own standard assets. You don't have to answer that because I don't know. It says that. All right, Emma. Have a good one. FPS controller missing scripts. Well, I mean, again, why? Oh, Lord. All right. I actually don't see where mine says the FPS controller is missing scripts. I will have to research this one. For now, I guess we can. What happens if I delete that from the scene? So will it run now? No, it won't. All right. Wow. It says it on the prefab itself. Okay. I just got rid of. All right. I see. Huh. The associated script cannot be loaded. That is awesome. Well, I'll have to look into that, and I will figure it out before next time for sure. That is crazy. What is the error? I mean, I don't see any errors in here. All right, well, I'll have to research that one. That's pretty crazy. And sorry, I didn't see it before now. But I will look into that and figure that out. But until then, play around with Pro Builder. Just pull out the first-person character, delete the standard assets for now, right? Because that should make it work. So I'm gonna make sure if I I'll first delete my first-person controller. Then I'm gonna take the standard assets folder, and I want to delete the whole stupid thing. All right, so. Oh my God, are you serious? All right. Serenity now. Okay. All right. are y'all having that same issue? So I deleted everything, but I still. Oh man, I can't run it.
My first person controller does actually work, but I don't have mine. My Unity isn't updated. That's probably why.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it's something in Pro Builder or something in the. All right, so I'll have to discover it. But do you have Pro Builder objects in there?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I have an archway and a terrain.
Oh, this is when I fall in love with Unity all over again. All right. So I'll have to figure out what's going on with that because I do not know. And it just seems really bizarre. It seems to have something to do. When I click play, it gives me another door in Pro Builder, and I don't know why. But I would imagine there's something connected between the two problems. Why would it give me another door? You know, I don't know. If I click play, boom, there's a door. Then I get errors. Makes no sense. Well, I will work to figure that out because I don't know what's up with that. And so anyway, play with Pro Builder. Hopefully it's working for you. I will try to figure out what's going on with that. If when I do, I will update. I will send out an email or put it in the notes or something, right? Figure out what is going on with Pro Builder standard assets. All right. Note to myself. All right, so I will figure that out hopefully by tomorrow, and I will get back to you on that. I'll put something in the notes. Hopefully I'll get it in the video for tomorrow as well. All right. Until then, play with Pro Builder. If you have issues with it, well, hopefully I'll figure those out. And any questions?
No, none for me.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll enjoy playing with Pro Builder and it will work for you. If not, well, I'll figure that out because there's something going on there. All right. That's all I have for you. So I'm gonna stop sharing here. All right. So that's all I have for you. If you want to run, you run because I'm gonna be running here in a second. All right. So y'all have a good week. Or actually, some of you, we will have class. If you're in 213, we'll be doing that tomorrow morning. So I'll see you then.
All right. I'll see you then.
All right.